The rope creaked above him, dust storm rising, but the outlaw never spoke a word. Not when the sheriff cursed him, not when the crowd jeered, not even when the widow begged for his life. But when her baby reached out a tiny hand and grabbed his finger. The silence shattered. What came next would set the prairie on fire, and no one, not the widow, not the town, not even the riders hunting him, would ever be the same. The rope creaked like an old church pew. Dust clung to the air, gritty and thick, as if the whole town held its breath. At the edge of the gallows platform stood a man with wrists bound and eyes that said nothing. The outlaw. He hadn't given a name, not to the sheriff, not to the judge, not even when they tightened the noose around his neck. He simply stood, silent, unmoving, a shadow carved in human form. Below, the townsfolk gathered, muttering in low voices. Some called for justice. Others spat at the dirt, swearing he deserved worse. But not everyone came to curse him. One figure pushed forward through the crowd, a black shawl pulled tight against the rising storm winds. A young widow, her face pale, her infant clutched close to her breast. She didn't come for spectacle. She came for mercy. Her voice trembled as she spoke up, louder than the sheriff's own order to hush the crowd. You've lost husbands, fathers, sons to men like him, but I've lost mine already. You want justice? Then spare him for labor. Put his hands to work instead of burying him in sand. The townsfolk bristled, split down the middle. A storm clawed at the horizon, red dust curling like fire in the sky. The sheriff squinted, uncertain if the widow's plea was righteous sense or madness. The outlaw never looked at her. His gaze stayed fixed on the sky, on nothing, on everything. Not a word slipped past his lips, but the rope. It never tightened. The storm rolled too fierce, forcing the crowd to scatter, driving grit into their eyes. The sheriff cursed under, his breath yanking the outlaw down, binding his hands tighter. Fine, he growled. We'll see what use he has on the widow's land. If he runs, he hangs. If he fights, he hangs. If he speaks... He hesitated, then spat. Well, he won't speak. The widow's eyes met the outlaw's as the storm howled between them. She searched for some spark, some flicker of a man, worth saving. But his silence held deeper than the desert's own grave. When the storm broke over the gallows, thunder cracking the sky wide, the outlaw's fate shifted, not to freedom, not to death, but to something harsher. A second chance. At life. Under the watch of a grieving woman and a town waiting for his fall. The noose dangled empty. The silence screamed louder. The storm drove them off the gallows like cattle scattered by lightning. Dust whipped through town, stinging skin and choking breath. The sheriff tied the outlaw hard to his saddle horn, then shoved the reins into the widow's hands. You begged for him. He's yours now. Make him sweat for his bread or drag him back when he fails. She pulled her shawl tighter and glanced at the man beside her. Bound wrists, hat brim low, jaw clenched like stone. He never spoke, never resisted. Only his eyes, dark, watchful, untamed, shifted toward her child when the wind wailed too sharp. By dusk, the storm spat them out onto the widow's land. The cabin squatted against the prairie like a scarred survivor, logs weathered silver by years of wind. Her fields were thin, rows of corn stripped to ragged stubble. She tied her horse, then turned to him. You'll stay roped till I can trust. You. Her voice trembled, but she held her ground. The outlaw didn't answer. He only lowered himself onto the porch step, dust caking his shoulders. She almost hated him more for that silence than if he'd cursed her. Inside, the baby stirred, crying soft from hunger. The widow set the child down, lit a lamp, and fetched a tin of beans. She offered none to the man outside. He didn't ask. Didn't even look, just sat, still as a shadow. Morning brought work. She led him to the half-collapsed fence, rope trailing from his wrists. He fixed rails, set posts, lifted more than she thought a single man could. Sweat streaked the dust from his face, carving lines across weather-hardened skin. Yet not once did he open his mouth. By midday, tracks appeared along the far ridge. Riders, not close enough to see faces, but near enough to set the widow's stomach turning. She caught the outlaw watching too, his gaze sharp as a hawk's. He gave nothing away, no word, no warning. That night she barred the door, the outlaw left on the porch with rope still biting his wrists. The child cried again, louder this time, and she hushed him against her breast. In the quiet between sobs, she heard it, the faint scrape of boots outside, pacing. Not escape, just waiting. Out here in the Wild West, every choice carried a price. If you've been gripped by this story so far, make sure to subscribe for more tales of love and survival, because the next twist may change everything. When dawn came, the outlaw still sat there, eyes on the horizon where the riders had been. Silent, patient, dangerous. The days stretched lean, marked by chores and wary silence. He worked where she pointed, splitting wood, hauling water, mending broken hinges. The rope stayed at his wrists, though she loosened it enough to let his hands move. He never fought. It. Never asked for food, though she left scraps on the porch. The widow kept her child close, watching the outlaw as though every moment might reveal whether he was man or beast. Nights were colder now. Coyotes sang beyond the fence line. She slept with her shotgun nearby, but on the fourth morning, the storm inside the cabin broke. Her boy, barely a year old, all chubby fists and restless curiosity, wobbled across the floor. The outlaw crouched in the doorway, shadow tall against the light. The child toddled straight to him, babbling nonsense. Before she could pull him back, the boy reached out and clutched one of those bound, dust-worn fingers. The outlaw froze. Breath caught in his chest, hard as iron. His hand twitched, then steadied. He looked down into the boy's wide eyes. For the first time since the gallows, something cracked across his face. Not a smile. Not yet. But not stone either. Then, low and rough as gravel dragged across tin, came words. "My name's Caleb." The widow stiffened, shotgun halfway to her shoulder. But the child only giggled, gripping tighter. Caleb raised his eyes, meeting hers at last. "Riders'll be back. Not for you, for me. They don't leave debts unpaid." The air in the cabin felt suddenly thin. His voice was hoarse, broken from disuse, but steady. A man who'd chosen silence not from weakness, but from weight. The widow's throat tightened. "Why tell me now?" Caleb glanced at the boy still holding him. Tiny fingers wrapped around, calloused skin. His jaw shifted. He don't know what silence costs. That night, she couldn't sleep. His words echoed through the timber walls, mixing with the wind. Riders, debts, a name finally spoken. She watched her child breathe easy, small chest rising and falling, and wondered what danger she had brought to her door. By dawn, hoofprints scarred the far ridge again, closer this time. The widow saw them while hanging laundry, hands trembling, against the clothespins. Caleb saw them too, eyes narrowing. The silence had broken. The storm was coming. The night smelled of smoke before flames ever touched the sky. Caleb sat on the porch, rope slack, but still binding when he stiffened. The widow stepped out, baby in her arms, and saw the faint orange glow flicker on the horizon. "They're close," Caleb muttered, his voice steadier now, as if speaking again had unburdened him. "Too close." The widow swallowed hard. "Tell me." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, eyes shadowed by the brim of his hat. "I rode with them once. Men who carved their law in blood, robbed banks, rail cars, ranches. I left when the killing stopped meaning anything. They swore I'd never walk away alive. That was the debt. The words tasted bitter, heavy, but they came all the same. Her stomach tightened. And now they've found you. Caleb nodded. And anyone sheltering me. His eyes shifted to the baby in her arms. They'll burn this place to ash if it proves a point. The widow's knees weakened, but she didn't step back. Then why stay? Why not run and lead them away? His jaw worked. Because running don't end it, and because... He stopped, breath catching. Because your boy held my hand, and for the first time in years I remembered what mercy felt like. She turned away, heart pounding. Mercy. A word that cut, as deep as fear. The night deepened. They moved inside, shuttering windows, dousing the lamps. The baby whimpered, restless against her shoulder. Caleb paced like a caged wolf, rope trailing, mind turning, when the widow dared ask, "What will they do?" He answered without pause. "Ride in quiet. Circle the house. Light the fields. And wait till you choke on smoke before they take aim." The widow closed her eyes, clutching the child tighter. Outside, hoofbeats whispered faint across the prairie. Shadows slid among the cornstalks, carrying torches, rifles, hunger. Caleb stopped pacing. He looked at the rope around his wrists, then at her. "Untie me, or we're all dead by sunrise." Her hand hovered over the knot, torn between fear and faith. His silence had broken, his truth laid bare. But trust? That would cost more than words. The riders were here, their debt collectors, cloaked in fire and shadow, and the widow's choice was seconds away. The creek lay just beyond the widow's field, black water sliding over stone under the moon's cold glare. By the time the riders swept in, torches flaring, Caleb was no longer bound. The rope lay coiled on the porch floor. Her hands had cut, him free, trembling, desperate. The riders fanned out, voices sharp, laughter cruel. "Thought you could run, Caleb," one barked, firelight dancing off his rifle barrel. Another hurled a torch into the corn. Flames snapped high, painting the night in red. Caleb didn't flinch. He led the widow and her baby down the back path toward the creek, whispering quick. "Stay low. Keep him quiet. When the gunfire starts, don't look back." She grabbed his sleeve. "What about you?" His eyes held hers, fierce but hollow. "Debts don't pay themselves." Then he stepped out from the brush, rifle lifted, his frame cut black against the fire. A single shot cracked. One rider fell screaming into the corn. Chaos followed, gunfire ripping, horses shrieking, firestorm rising. Caleb fought like a man who had already died once, his every move bought with the memory of silence he'd carried. So long. But numbers swallowed him. 3 riders pinned him near the creek bank, rifles raised. He staggered, blood dark on his shirt, yet his gaze fixed on the widow crouched in the reeds. One rider snarled, "Time to finish what you ran from." Caleb's lips curled in a faint, broken grin. Not tonight. He fired the last bullet into. The torch wedged against the creek's dry brush. Flame leapt skyward, feeding on gunpowder spilled from a saddlebag. The explosion rolled like thunder, scattering men and horses into the water. Shouts turned to screams, smoke to choking ash. When silence returned, only Caleb's body lay slumped at the edge, hand outstretched toward the creek. The widow crept from the reeds, tears streaking through soot, the baby pressed close. She knelt, beside him, clutching his rough hand. His eyes flickered open one last time, voice ragged as desert wind. Keep him safe. Don't let him learn silence. Then the breath left him. The riders who could still walk fled into the night, leaving fire and ruin behind. The widow sat there, smoke curling around her, baby's small hand wrapping Caleb's finger one last time. If Caleb's courage stirred something inside you, don't just leave this story behind. Like this video, subscribe and ring the bell, because Out here in the Wild West, love may be scarcer than water, but it always finds a way.